Have you ever heard of a Bible that's older and more complete than the one most of the world uses? What if I told you this Bible suggests a narrative that has been systematically overlooked? One that places key biblical figures, including Jesus and Moses, firmly within an African context. Today, we're diving deep into the mysteries of the Ethiopian Bible, the sacred text of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, and asking a provocative question. Was the African origin of some of history's most influential figures deliberately erased? Let's start with the basics. The Ethiopian Bible, also known as the Guizi Bible, is one of the oldest and most fascinating Christian canons in the world. It contains books that are not found in the standard Protestant or Catholic Bibles, like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Maccabean. These texts aren't just extra chapters. They offer different perspectives and details that can radically reshape our understanding of biblical history. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, one of the oldest Christian denominations, has preserved these texts for nearly 2 millennia, maintaining a tradition that traces its roots back to the time of the apostles. So, where does the idea of an African Moses come from? While the mainstream Bible tells us Moses was born to Hebrew parents in Egypt, the Book of Jubilees, found in the Ethiopian canon, provides more details about his life before he fled Egypt. It describes him not just as an Egyptian prince, but as a military commander who led campaigns in Ethiopia, even marrying an Ethiopian princess. This isn't just a footnote. It's a significant part of his life story that paints him as a man deeply connected to the African continent beyond just his birthplace in Egypt. This narrative suggests Moses wasn't just in Africa. He was a leader of African armies, a detail largely absent from the Western narrative. Why would this part of his story be left out of other canons? Now let's talk about Jesus. The common image of Jesus, with fair skin and light hair, is a product of European Renaissance art, not historical accuracy. Geographically and historically, a man from Nazareth in the Middle East would have had a darker complexion, consistent with the people of that region. But the Ethiopian Bible and tradition take this understanding even further. Remember, ancient Egypt and Ethiopia were powerful, interconnected civilizations long before the rise of Greece and Rome. The Holy Family's flight to Egypt, mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew, is not just a brief stop in Ethiopian tradition. They believe the family traveled extensively, even as far south as present-day Ethiopia. For them, Africa wasn't just a temporary refuge. It was a place of safety and welcome. This deep connection is celebrated annually with pilgrimages to sites believed to have been visited by them. This perspective reframes Africa from a footnote in Jesus' story to a central, protective force in his early life. So, if these African connections are so prominent in such an ancient text, why are they not common knowledge? This is where we have to look at the history of how the biblical canon was formed and translated. The dominant biblical narrative we have today was largely compiled, translated, and disseminated by European scholars and institutions, particularly from the 4th century onward with the Roman Empire's adoption of Christianity. During this process, choices were made about which books to include and which to exclude. Books like Enoch and Jubilees, which were revered in Ethiopia, were deemed apocryphal or non-canonical by Western churches. Was this an intentional erasure? Many scholars argue that it was a combination of factors. The Eurocentric worldview of the time played a massive role. As European powers began to explore and later colonize the world, it became ideologically convenient to portray Christianity and its central figures as being separate from and superior to other cultures, especially African ones. A blonde, blue-eyed Jesus was a powerful tool for cultural assimilation. An image of Jesus and Moses with deep African roots would have complicated and even contradicted the colonial narrative that justified subjugation based on racial and cultural hierarchies. It's not necessarily a single conspiracy, but a long, slow process of cultural and theological bias that prioritized a European interpretation of Scripture. Think about the implications. By sidelining the Ethiopian canon, the global Christian narrative lost a rich, ancient perspective. We lost the detailed accounts and jubilees that ground Moses' story in a wider African context. We lost the full appreciation of the Book of Enoch, a text that is actually quoted in the New Testament book of Jude. This text is filled with complex cosmology and prophecy that profoundly influenced early Christian and Jewish thought. The marginalization of these texts effectively silenced an ancient African voice within the broader Christian conversation. It created a skewed version of history that centered Europe and minimized Africa's foundational role. The Ethiopian tradition offers a powerful counter-narrative. It reminds us that Christianity in Africa is not an imported religion. It's an ancient faith with roots as deep, if not deeper, than in Europe. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church stands as a living testament to this, having maintained its unique liturgy, language, and canon for centuries, untouched by the councils that shaped Western Christianity. Their Bible isn't just a collection of stories, it's a declaration of cultural and spiritual independence. It proudly proclaims the African presence at the very heart of the biblical story, from the Garden of Eden being located by the rivers of Ethiopia, to the Queen of Sheba's visit to Solomon, to the Ethiopian eunuch being one of the first Gentile converts in the book of Acts. So, what does this all mean for us today? Recognizing the African context of these figures isn't about rewriting the Bible. It's about reading it more completely. It's about acknowledging that the version of history we've been taught is often incomplete, shaped by the biases of those who wrote it down. The Ethiopian Bible challenges us to decolonize our understanding of faith and history, to see the biblical world not through a purely European lens, but as the diverse, multicultural world it actually was. It shows us that Africa was never on the periphery of this story. It was, and is, central to it. Exploring the Ethiopian Bible is an invitation to uncover a richer, more colorful, and more historically accurate tapestry of faith. It's a journey that reveals how history is often a story told by the victors, and that sometimes the most profound truths are found in the stories that have been pushed to the margins. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration today. What do you think? Was this a deliberate erasure or a historical accident? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to uncover more hidden histories, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next one. See you next time.